Hello and welcome back to the Gavra Racing GT7 League Season 7 for round number 8 here in Australia at the famous Mount Panorama. 13 drivers on the grid, or maybe 12 drivers, I can't actually remember how many we've got tonight on the grid for today's race. And Mount Panorama, it's been a track that hasn't featured all too often on the calendar, but the last time we went there it was a pretty entertaining race with some drama in the middle as well. Before we go through the grid for today's race, just going to quickly check if my audio's working all a-okay. So just bear with me for 2 seconds. Alright, we seem to be all in the clear. So, let's go through the grid then for today's race. Starting in 12th place at the back of the grid is Abyss, making his GT7 debut in tonight's race, and literally alongside him is Cameron Kaboom after serving a quali ban for the collision caused at the end of the sprint race in Deep Forest Raceway. Ahead of him we got Fett starting in 11th place, although the track says in 10th place, although the track says 9th. That's going to be interesting to see how this evolves throughout the race. Oh no, that's not Fett. That's Ted. Sorry, this is Fett. Yeah, he is in 10th. I'm on the wrong side of the grid. In 10th place is Fett, and in 9th place ahead of him is Ted in the Nissan GTR, the 2018 variant. In 8th place, Black Country Mush, and alongside Black Country, Wiggly Style in 7th place, only 1 second off pole position. And ahead of Wiggly Style is the championship leader with a poor qualifying. Play Dutchy starts 6th place, nearly 6/10 off the pole time, which we'll get onto in just a second. Alongside him, his former teammate Piero, setting a 2-minute 1.7. Two drivers in the 2-minute 1.7s. The other one is myself, starting in 4th place, alongside the King of the Mountain, Tiger Assassin, starts in 3rd place with an Australian-themed special livery on his Porsche 911. Ahead of him is his teammate, Toussaint 208, also running the same green and yellow Australian sporting colours. Only 2/10 off pole position, and the pole sitter once again is Bon Evil 99, who puts that Alfa Romeo on the front row of the grid where the big number 1 is, and will lead the field down in towards turn 1, but can he keep it by the time they get to lap 27? That's a beautiful camera shot of all our cars on the grid. It's a shame the sun's not doing us great. Yeah, that's not great for the driver starting in 4th and 6th place, but besides that, we are ready to get this race underway for the Australian Grand Prix. My computer's just crashed in front of me, so we're not going to get a track map for the first couple of minutes. We'll just have to do with my general knowledge of the circuit for now. Let's get all the race replay info on the screen. We won't start with 3 red lights, we'll start with 0. And get this race underway for Season 7, round number 8, here at Mount Panorama. And the lights count down for the 8th time this season for the 3.6 kilometre circuit here in Australia. 5 red lights are on, and it's lights out, and away we go. Bon Evil leads the field from pole position. Toussaint trying to challenge in towards turn 1 in 2nd place. Natty on the outside as Tiger goes to send 1 3 wide in the background, as I think that's Ted makes contact with the Abyss, and Black Country Mush goes off on the exit of the first corner, but it's Bon Evil who maintains the lead of the race. Natty and Tiger now side by side, wheel to wheel in the run down towards turn 2. Over the slight hill they go down the second longest straight on the circuit. Piero getting the jump on the McLaren. He just tucks into behind of the Porsche for now, moves his way up into 4th place. Tiger maintaining 3rd off the start. Play Dutchy staying in 6th place, taking it nice and cautiously in the opening phases of this race. Wiggly Star in 7th. Ted's moved his way up a couple of positions, so has Abyss running in 8th and 9th as Ted brushes the wall on the outside. Abyss going to try and work his way around the outside, and Cameron Kaboom's going to follow him through up into 9th place for the Brits, who started at the back of the grid. But the drivers now making their way through the trickiest part of the circuit, maybe the most challenging corners on the calendar to get right consistently lap after lap. Turns 11 through to 19, or 11 down to 18, sorry. The dipper section. You can see the speed, the confidence, the grip that these drivers have down the hill. Single file for the majority of drivers, and if you do go side by side, it's probably not going to end well for one driver, but we'll have to wait and see how this race unfolds. It's not going to be impossible. Let's just wait and see. Good start for Abyss, up into 8th place, and is ahead of Cameron Kaboom, Black Country Mush, and Ted now going side by side. The Nissan driver with an initial good start off the line has dropped to 11th place. Well, in the early phases of this race, and someone's gone off. That's Pierre in the background going off the track down in the final chicane, turn 22, now going side by side with Wiggly Style through the final corner, and the Swedish driver looking to try and go round the outside off the McLaren. It's a massive tank slapper on the exit of the corner. 23 turns make up the 3.8 kilometre circuit. I realise I'm saying 3.8 kilometres, 3.8 miles, which is about, what, 6.2 miles? 6.2 kilometres, which is 3.8 miles. Bear with me. We could be 3 wide going towards turn 2. Abyss now looking for a move on the inside. The track not quite wide enough for all the cars to fit side by side, and Pierre is able to keep 7th place in this race. Dutchy up into 5th place now after the Frenchman making the mistake at the final corner, putting the young Brits under a little bit of pressure as they make their way through the hill, or through the mountain I should say. It is in the name of the track, Panorama. The 4-time GT champion will be looking to try and get ahead of the Brits in front. No championships in the GT season for him just yet, but kick out a few of the quick guys and we might be in the money. Purple through the first sector, or second sector for Bonnie Evil, but it is lap 2, so every driver on the grid will be going purple on this lap, but who will get the fastest lap by the end of the race? That's when it matters, and whichever driver can achieve that will take home an extra point in the championship standings. Obviously Bonnie Evil going into this race with 1 point, technically, after starting on pole position, a new addition to this season. I believe actually the first time we ran with the pole position point award, as the front 3 continue to bump draft each other to try and pull away from the bump drafting drivers behind. Natty and Dutchy trying to catch up to the front 3 as Toussaint trying to go for a move round the outside of Bonnie Evil, down and towards the final couple of corners. Tiger's going to look for a move on the inside of his teammate. I think that might have been a mistake from Bonnie Evil, which allowed Toussaint to try and capitalise on a possible move for the lead of this race, but across the line to start lap 3, and it is Play Dutchy with the fastest lap of the race so far. 2-minute 3.0 in the background. We've got some moves going on as Cameron Kaboom and Abyss are side by side in the battle for 8th place, and the Japanese Lexus gets ahead of the Japanese Nissan. As down the second straight, the run from turn 1 to turn 2. Bonnie Evil still with the lead of this race. The marshals waving the green flags in the background. As interestingly, slightly different lines being taken by Toussaint and Tiger Assassin. Looks like Toussaint's opting for a slightly wider approach to turn 4, but both drivers with good pace and start of this race, starting in the positions they're currently in. Top 3 unchanged from their grid positions. Dutchy's got ahead of Natty G. Wigginstown now up into 6th place and keeping Piera at bay for now after a slight mistake at the final chicane. And speaking of, has a massive tank slapper on the exit of turn 10. And a common error a lot of drivers will likely make throughout their course of driving this track, and especially whilst trying to push to the absolute limits for 27 laps of racing. Great save from Piero, great car control to keep it in a straight line. Unfortunately lost the position to Cameron Kaboom, but is still in this race. The McLaren slows down for half a second to serve a time penalty. That could allow Wiggly Style, indeed it does allow Wiggly Style to go through up the inside into the top 5 for the Swedish driver. And I think there was a time penalty or a mistake from Tiger Assassin somewhere in the top half of the mountain, because he's closer to play Dutchy than he is his teammate. About 2.5 seconds now is the gap between him and second place. Dutchy all over the back of the Porsche. He might take this opportunity to save a little bit of fuel with the knowledge he has of the Alfa Romeo in front. Although it has great race pace under the hands of Bon Evil, it doesn't have great tyre wear, and at a track where the 1 and the 2 stop strategy is being questioned by some of the drivers on the grid going into this race, it might be an option for that Alfa Romeo. Toussaint, sitting behind the Italian manufacturer, might in fact begin to start saving a little bit of fuel so he can spend shorter time in the pit stops, whereas Tiger Assassin, although that Porsche doesn't drown its fuel, it does like to save a little bit naturally. He might try and just push a little bit in the next few laps to regain his concentration and his focus and close down the gap to his teammate and put himself within a standing fight of winning this race. Anything can yet to happen. It is a long race at Mount Panorama. 27 laps, should be about 55 minutes of racing, where lots of mistakes can be made, and purple in fact for either Natty or Wiggly Star. I was flicking through the drivers as we went through sector 2, so I'm not really sure who that purple was for. Currently Dutchy with the fastest lap of the race. Piero down to 8th place behind Cameron Caboon. It's a track that's really difficult to overtake out. The best opportunity probably down into turn 20 and turn 21, the section known as the Chase, which is where the drivers are coming up to now. Probably the best overtaking opportunity at the circuit. Maybe turn 2 and turn 1 if you get a really good exit off the back of the final corner. Bonnie Evil goes into turn 21 in the lead of this race with a comfortable margin to Toussaint behind. Not close enough to go for a move, but close enough to sit in the slipstream and save a little bit of fuel in the early phase of this race. As much as drivers love pushing and going flat out lap after lap and wanting to lead laps in this championship, it's all about whoever finishes first on the final lap of the race, as opposed to obviously how many laps you lead in a race. And it's all a strategic mind game over the course of this season, with drivers saving fuel, mixing up the strategy, some possibly opting to start on a softer Compana tyre. Could see a move for 5th place. That's Natty G trying to go for it on Wrigley Star, who goes to Benson to the inside down at turn 2, but Natty with a switch back up the hill is going to try and make this work, but just can't find enough room to get past that Toyota Supra that's parking the bus through the narrow streets of Mount Panorama. But Wiggly Star's gone a little bit deep, and the slide on the exit of the corner could allow Natty to go around the outside. Contact between the two teammates who are now going side by side, blocking the road for Piero, who can't find a way through the tracks. Not wide enough. Wiggly Star's rounded off in the wall. He's facing the wrong way with damage to his front bumper. Piero's not got away with it either. He's got damage to the suspension and the aerodynamics. And this has been such a chaotic and dramatic start for Piero in this race. He hasn't seemed to... He's been involved in two mistakes, let's say, in 5 laps. And he now drops down to 7th place. Well, in fact, he actually gets up into 7th place after Wiggly Star now drops down to 10th after the spin and the collision with his teammate. And unfortunately for Piero, the track was just not wide enough for him to find a way through. Meanwhile, Dutchy finding room on the inside, the right-hand side of the backstroke, to go for a move on his fellow Porsche driver, not his teammate, but moves up into a podium position after starting this race in 6th place. He's moved up 3 positions in the first 5 laps. And he's got about, I'd estimate, 4 to 5 seconds to the current race leaders, making their way through the final corner now, as you can see on your screen. So is it now Dutchy's turn to put the foot down, burn a little bit of fuel he might have saved in the early phases of this race, and for Tiger and the McLaren of Natty to save a little bit? And I think it's now an appropriate time to say how that McLaren driver is once again following and looking at the back of that Porsche 911 that has been a common sight all season. Brands Hatch, Deep Forest, Trail Mountain, not Trail Mountain, Dragon Trail. Nearly got it right, but yeah, it's a common occurrence for Natty to be behind Tiger Assassin this season, although he's 1 point ahead of him going into this race in the championship standings. That could change with Tiger in 4th, myself in 5th with the fastest lap. From memory, that's 13 and 10 points. And Tiger will take a 2 point lead, a 1 point lead actually, because Marcus Armstrong does have the fastest lap of the race so far. For any viewers who are new to the Gran Turismo series at Gavra Racing, I hope you are enjoying the action-packed racings in the opening 6 laps here at Mount Panorama. For those who also don't know, I am Marcus Armstrong, or X-Strategy, depending on if you use the PlayStation or whatever. So I do tend to refer myself in the third person just so it makes the stream feel a little bit more natural, rather than saying I'm going down the inside or I'm being overtaken. So expect that throughout this season and future seasons, perhaps. I do realise my phone sitting on the sun has made it overheat excessively. It is very hot here in the UK. So that's right with the sun beaming on the TV. So if I can't see an overtake, it's because I can't see the screen. Meanwhile, 2 penalties for Toussaint means he drops to 2nd place, further behind the race leader, Bon Eagle 99, going through the final corner, turn 23. But Toussaint maintained his initial grid position, his championship. Oh, we've got a spinner! Camera Kaboom is facing the wrong way at the final corner. My best guess would be that he probably dipped a wheel onto the outside curb or the grass on the outside of the final corner. He's lost the rein. He might be overtaken by Black Country Mush. Indeed, he will be. The Brit going down the inside and towards the first corner. The Mercedes up into 8th place and Cameron down to 9th. After what looked like a really good start for the drivers who started at the back of the grid. Has an unfortunate spin at the final corner. Quite a few mistakes being made in the early phases of this race. It's a really challenging and punishing circuit, because if you do make a mistake and face the wrong way, it's really difficult to get back going again and trying to find a safe place to turn around. Cameron Kaboom's got back up ahead of Black Country Mush. He didn't spend too long sat behind the Mercedes AMG. One Eagle 4000's purple through the 2nd sector. Nice and cautious from the Alfa Romeo driver in the early phases of this race, not trying to take too many risks. I think that could be a time penalty. Indeed it is. Half a second coming the way of the Season 1 and Season 6 champion. Toussaint's now going to be overtaken by Play Dutchy as he slows down for those 5 tenths here at the penalty gate. Coming up in just a couple of seconds, situated about, I don't know, maybe 45% of the way down this long back straight, the longest straight on this circuit. He's lost the position to Dutchy, he's lost the position to his teammate. Tiger now goes for a move down the inside at turn 20, up into a podium position behind Play Dutchy. So Dutchy then, from 6th on the grid, has made 4 positions in 7 laps, now up into 2nd place, setting consistent mid-2-minute 3s. Meanwhile, the current race leader with a 2-minute 2.9 as the last laps, and is pulling an advantage over the cars behind. It's really good pace from the Alfa Romeo driver, Bon Eagle, leading this race with a car who has made a mistake on lap 4. Not sure what happened to Ted with a 2-minute 41.2. Certainly not the fastest lap ever done in the GT3 at this circuit. And has dropped to 11th place. We have lost Fett after 2 laps of racing. But you can see the lead that Bon Eagle has over Play Dutchy and the cars behind him. Tiger, Toussaint, Natty as well, 4 cars that are closely following the back of the Dutchman, with a sole goal of hunting down the current race leader, who has got a nice advantage in the early phase of this race. It's a track where you do not really, if you struggle with being under pressure, this is not a track that you want to have someone following you closely for long periods of time. It just increases the stress of trying to nail every single corner, and it's a track that's as challenging as this, but you can see the confidence that these drivers have going through the downhill dipper section. In sector 3, contact with Tiger and Dutchy. Dutchy sent into a spin, and Toussaint hits it at the back of his teammate
Dutch is now facing the wrong way, struggling to try and get the car going again. He's in the wall and he's nearly collected Piero on the exit of turn 18, sorry. Two Saints now up into second place, under pressure from his Premier Series rival from the F1 days. Damage to the front bumper as he hit the back of his stationary teammate. He made contact with the rear left of Play Dutchie's new Porsche 911. It's a different livery on his Porsche, and he's now going to be overtaken by Abyss. The Brit going for a move down the inside. Dutchie leaves him the room, but the Nissan driver just not late enough on the brakes to try and challenge for 6th place. But that has cost Dutchie a lot of time. You can see on the mini-map the driver's going through the first corner as Dutchie goes through the last. An incident that might be looked at by the stewards after the race. Tiger drops to 4th and is under pressure from Piero going down the mountain straight and towards turn 2. You can see the elevation difference. You can't even see the first corner as they go over a slight hill within the back straight. Beautiful camera shot of the cars going over the curb. Tiger taking a slightly wider approach to on the exit of the second corner as opposed to Piero and Matt McLaren. Whether it's a confidence thing or different lines, not too sure. As further back, we've got Camel Kaboom in the wall as Abyss now works his way down the inside and walks through the open door up into 7th place. Thought we had a car in the pits, but all 11 drivers still out on the circuit. Close racing between Abyss and Camel Kaboom. They're going to go side by side in towards the dipper. Abyss running wide onto the gravel, nearly conceding a position to Camel Kaboom. Lexus driver just sitting behind the Nissan for now. But look how closely Cameron's following Abyss through this downhill section. So much confidence, or more confidence, going through this section, keeping it nice and tight to the inside wall. We could see a change of positions in the battle for 7th place. The Lexus now side by side, wheel to wheel, with the with the Nissan GTR. It's going to be a long, slow run for down and towards the chase, and Cameron Kaboom's hoping it comes sooner rather than later as it gets ahead of the Nissan up into 7th place. Thought Abyss was going to think about sending one back down the inside, but decides better off it and just sits in behind the Lexus. Cameron Kaboom now up into 7th place. Let's have a look at tyre wear after 10 laps of racing. Bon Evil really struggling with rear tyre wear in comparison to Toussaint and his Mercedes behind. Natty just a little bit worse off than Toussaint, but fairly similar. But it's clear to see the difference between the race leader and the drivers in 2nd place, as indicated by the red in the bottom left hand corner of the screen. Good evening, Cameron Kaboom in the chat, or good afternoon I should say. Doing this stream a little bit earlier than usual. And despite it being less than 24 hours to when this race was being run live, I have actually I've genuinely completely forgotten a lot of what happens and when what happens and if anything does happen. So yeah, apologies to any of the drivers if I do actually miss stuff. I've got a few comments from a few of the races saying, I can't believe you missed my overtake. You were right behind me or something. It's like, yeah, well, apologies about missing overtakes, or you know, moments or slides. I do my best. Yeah, I do. But yeah, I've got one. Well, I've got 2 eyes. I was going to say I've got 1 eye. 2 eyes, 1 POV. Maybe it'll make its way in a montage video if I have time to make maybe a top 10 moments of the season or something like that. So keep an eye out for that. Tiger Assassin under pressure from Piero. Drivers running in 4th and 5th place as Tiger's into the pits. That is probably going to be a 2-stop from him unless he goes on to a set of the white striped hard compound tyres to do the final 17 laps of the race, but I highly doubt it. The hard tyres have never been used this season, and only made their appearance across 2 Grand Prix last season, whereby the tyre wear was set to ×5 and it was slightly higher than it is now. I believe Interlagos and Watkins Glen, I think, were the 2 tracks where drivers opted for the hard compound tyres. I know Bonnieville used the hard tyres in Spain, tried something different after starting on pole position, but was the only driver to use the hards in that race, and the first time that the hards were used in that season. I think probably the first time the hards were actually used ever. Because obviously back in GT Sport, where we had 4 choices of tyre, the super soft, the soft, the medium and of the hard. So the hard tyre was practically useless. Speaking of useless, Bonnieville's binned it in the dipper section. He hasn't binned it, he's made a slight mistake, but that will cut down his advantage up in front. 6-second lead. Hang on, let's have a look at the gaps. 25, 26. So yeah, it's about a 6-second lead. Probably was about 8 or 9. And if Bonnieville is watching, of course, that is a joke. You're not useless. Although, let's see how this race turns out. You are leading, no pressure. And that's what I mean by the casual commentary, as I'm going to call it. I'll say that's what I'm going to call it. That's what it is, casual commentary. Made a couple of jokes in Deep Forest Raceway, so it's going to be maybe a theme that might continue for this season. I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm sure I'll get a message later on tonight saying, "How dare you call me useless," or something. I'll give him maybe an extra point in the championship to make up for it. But speaking of, he has led every single lap of this race so far. Started on pole position, hasn't quite got the fastest lap of the race so far. Cameron Kaboom's into the pits off of the medium compound tyres after 12 laps, so that will probably be for a 2-stop as well. More wear to the front right, interestingly. Whereas Bonnieville's struggling with rear tyre, so is Panorama. So it's an interesting mix of tyre degradation across some of the drivers. Some drivers suffering with front end grip, some with rear. And when I used to do the F1 streams for Gavra, I never really, I didn't really mention ERS usage, just in case any of the drivers were watching the race live, which could give them a slight, psychological advantage if they knew drive in front or behind more or less deployment. But seeing as this race is not live, I feel like I can and will talk about the fuel, as Toussaint gets a 1-second time penalty for track limits down at turn 13. No, 14. 14 to the left-hander. A corner that's really easy to cut because you really want to straight line that corner as much as possible. And here it goes, slows down for a second. That's going to bring X-Strategy a lot closer to the back of that Mercedes and probably enable some fuel saving. So seeing as this race is not live, I will be talking about the fuel saving and tyre wear. And well, Natty's got a lot more fuel than the cars around him, so is Piero. And more importantly, look at Play Dutch is on practically half a tank. Race leader, what's that, about 35%? The Alpha draining its fuel, whilst Dutchy is saving, just managing his lap times consistently in the mids, 2-minute 3s, and if you ignore the crash that happened in lap 8 between him and Tiger Assassin, every single lap apart from the last has been set in the 2-minute 3 6th region, and that is something that is a skill that Play Dutchy has. That's one of the reasons he's a 4-time champion. The ability to set consistently quick laps, lap after lap. That 1-second time penalty for Toussaint's brought Natty a lot closer to the back of that Mercedes, and it looks like Piero's joining the battle for the podium positions. Battle for second is now on between these 3 drivers. This race is absolutely flown by. We're already on lap 13 of 27. Let's have a look at some of the drivers running in the midfield. Black Country Mush running in 7th place. He's gained 2 positions due to drivers making their pit stops. Tiger Assassin right behind him. We could see an overtake at the top of the hill with the grip and the soft compound tyres and the leeway of Black Country Mush. If anything, that hindered Black Country Mush as he actually dipped the wheel onto the grass, letting Tiger go through. Woodley Style trying to recover after a spin on lap 5, I believe it was, and an incident with his teammate. Currently running in 10th place, about 10 seconds behind. That gap coming down up in front, I think it's still around 6 seconds. We're judging the gaps by the lap time, which is something I've kind of realised I could do in the last couple of races. We're hitting the 2-minute mark now, 1 minute 54 the two states, so you do the math, that's 6 seconds between the two drivers in terms of the lap time. As we have now crossed the halfway point in the race, with Bollywood in the lead after starting on pole position, close to getting a rear right puncture after only 14 laps of racing. He's just got to stretch these medium tyres out as long as he can, because if he could only do half the race on mediums, it's going to be a struggle to get softs to the end. Could be a gamble worth taking when you're in the lead of the race and the championship is falling away from you after a run of a few poor results from the standard set in the first 2 races of the season. But nevertheless, it's been a good showing so far for the Brits. As one Brit has got a penalty, that is Marcus Armstrong. Don't know where I actually got that from. Oh yeah, running wide through turn 4, or the entrance to turn 4. We'll try and get a driver. Here we go, those white lines. Running wide over the white line, please give you a time penalty. It's been interesting to note Tiger's progress throughout this race. He's currently set the fastest lap of the race, a 2 minute 2.0, on a 2-stop strategy. When was the last time a 2-stop strategy worked in the league? Probably would have been Spa for round 4 or 5, where Piero was able to finish in second, although the winner of that race was played up to. He did do the 1-stop. I think he had a car facing the wrong way, or it might have just been the arrows making their way down the back part of the circuit. Thought the McLaren was going to go into the pits that lap. Playing a few mind games with the cars around him. Now under pressure from Piero, the Frenchman gaining on the back of the McLaren driver after the 5-10 penalty. Let's ride on board with Piero. Driver's eye essentially in the McLaren, gaining and gaining and gaining in the slipstream from the car in front, nearly a 10th and a half off of his personal best, which was set on lap 7. And it's that phase of the race where drivers are probably starting to struggle with grip on the medium compound tyres. It's an interesting one where when the tyres start to fade, they really do go. Now he's wide, that could allow Piero to go through on the inside, but there's not enough room for the Frenchman to find a way through. Natty to try to defend this 3rd place after he's lost the back of Toussaint, making their way through turn 7, 8 and 9. I believe it's called Solomon Park, this section of corners. They approach the dipper section for the 15th time this race. That looks quick, that looks deep. Indeed it is. Natty's off into the grass. That could allow Piero through on the inside, and the Frenchman gets up into the lead. And Natty spun from 4th place, and he's facing the wrong way in the dipper. Gets the car turned around. Luckily for him, no one was coming down the dipper. Otherwise, that would have been a massive crash. Dutchy actually covering the wall on the inside as well in the entrance to turn 12. And that has cost Marcus Armstrong the possibility of a podium finish in this race, as you can't even see the cars in front of him going over the hill down the Conrad Straight. Piero already through turn 12 and 11. Let's look at the lap time lost. It's a 48. Oh, they started the lap time. Okay, so this system doesn't work if the drivers start the... Yeah, I've realised the flaw with the system. Because I was ahead of Piero when I started the lap, my lap time is going to be quicker up to now, because we haven't finished the lap. As Nati and Piero both come into the pit. So there is a slight flaw with the lap time system in trying to work out the gap between the drivers, but it works when they don't crash. Toussaint now inherits the lead of the race as the race leader does come into the pits at the end of lap 15, start lap 16, off of the medium compound tyres and onto a set of the red striped soft for the final 12 laps of this race. It's going to have to be a tyre conservating stint. Does he get out in clear air? Here come Abyss and Ridley Starr through turn 1. I think Bonneville's just got the gap ahead of the Nissan. It could be close if Abyss goes for a move at turn 2. But I think Bonneville's just got the gap. But Whitley Starr's going to take this opportunity to go down the inside of the Nissan. Was there contact? I'm not sure from that camera angle, but he gets up into 6th place. And whereas Abyss decided to play it cautiously, Whitley Starr was saying having none of that. Saw a gap, went for it, and is now up into 6th place. Natty exits the pit lane in 10th position, last place on the circuit, as Ted has retired from this race, starting in for Wolfie tonight. As Black Country Mush running in 9th place behind Cam Kaboom. Fresh set of soft compound tyres. How did he not get damage from that? He must have just saved it at the last second not to have made contact with the barrier. Abyss getting out of shape through the downhill dipper section. Meanwhile, the gap starting to open out a little bit at the front of the field. Closest battle on track is probably the battle for first place, which has now been nullified as they make their pit stops. The first pit stop of the race. Piero has got more fuel than Toussaint. Bear that in mind when they leave the pit lane. It could be really close on exit. Played up 2 stays out for another lap on those medium compound tyres. Calvin Kaboom in the chat saying it was Code Brown at that moment. Where will Bonneville filter out in relation to the leaders? Has he extended his gap on those fresh soft compound tyres? As Wiggly Starler also stays out for another lap. Appears to have good tyre management in this race as Piero and Toussaint going to leave the pits. Nose to tail, they're actually going to go side by side down the mountain straight in the run down towards turn 2. Toussaint was ahead of Piero. Can he keep ahead of Piero after the pit stop phase? Side by side, over the hill they go. Toussaint's got the advantage and is ahead of the McLaren. Half a second less time in the pit lane, and Piero might have got that position. It's P7 on the road for Toussaint, P8 for Piero, but they've got drivers in front of him that are yet to make pit stops or still need to make one more stop to complete their planned strategy. Cameron Kaboom trying to get ahead of Abyss as Black Country Mush is now under pressure from Natty. He's going to try and go for a move down the inside. Makes the move stick up into 9th place. Cameron and Abyss are side by side down the dipper. Abyss backs off. Cameron up into 5th place. The Lexus now trying to hunt down his teammate Wiggly Star after the collision in the first 5 laps of the race. Abyss might be struggling with tyres a little bit. He's got Toussaint and Piero right up behind him. He's gone wide. He's gone a little bit deep through Forest Elbow. Correct me if I'm wrong. On board with Toussaint. You can see the Nissan to his left. He's got the McLaren behind him. Speaking of, where is that McLaren? There it is, close behind. Now they're going to go 3 wide. They're going to go side by side. Piero trying to follow Toussaint through Abyss, keeping his nose in on the inside. Brakes earlier than the McLaren, just backs out of the move. Knows that he doesn't have the tyre advantage or the tyre grip to fight with the 2 front runners, and pulls into the pits. Doesn't want to cause any dramas or lose too much time in his own personal battles. But that's Toussaint up into 4th place. After Dutchy and Wiggly Style coming to the pits ahead of him. As it's starting to get a little bit overcast here at the circuit. Fortunately for the drivers, it cannot rain at this track. Dutchy's come out of the pits just ahead of Natty, but has the run from the first corner, giving the McLaren an advantage to get ahead by turn 2. We'll just have to wait and see. I don't think it is. I think Dutchy's got this one covered. He's now running in 6th position. The new race leader, Tiger Assassin, yet to make his second pit stop after pitting early for the soft compound tyres,
and is running low on fuel.
Quick drinks break needed, as we've got the final 10 laps to go of the Australian Grand Prix. It's Tiger who leads from Bon Evil in second, Cameron Kaboom in third, nearly clipping the ball on the inside. Toussaint not far behind in fourth, Pierre in fifth, Dutchy in sixth, Natty in seventh, Wiggly Style in eighth. We've got Abyss in ninth and Black Country Mission in 10th place with damage to the bumper and front right suspension. And I think we're going to be seeing a scheduled pit stop from the race leader. Tiger Assassin pulls over to the left-hand side and is into the pits. Slows it down this time, doesn't get a penalty for crossing the white line. And with that, Bon Evil will take the lead of the race back once again after starting on pole position. Not too far behind him is Cameron Kaboom, who's making his second stop of the race. Really nice camera angle here actually. The cars, you can see how close the leaders are together as we flick down the drivers. We are staying with this camera angle, which indicates that the front runners are still really close to each other, despite the action, despite the overtaking and the collisions that have unfolded throughout the course of this race. We've got a two-way fight for second and a two-way fight for fourth. This could be one four-way battle for 2 spots on the podium by the end of this race, with Toussaint battling Pierre for second place, Natty trying to put Dutchy under pressure for fourth place, and McLaren going purple through the first sector. Faster than Tiger's 2-minute 1.5, which he was able to manage on his first stint on these soft compound tyres. Let's get another bite of the cherry after making a later stop than all the other drivers, so we'll have fresh air tyre advantage. Bon Evil still leads this race. It is red and white Alfa Romeo. Toussaint running a green and yellow special themed livery for the Australian Grand Prix. Piero with blue, pink and purple, and Dutchy in orange, white and black. I don't think I've said a colour twice yet in the going through the colours on the liveries of the top 5. It's a very nice, colourful grid this season. It's almost like the opposite of F1, where all the liveries were lovely with carbon fibre and dark colours. So we've got a nice, vibrant grid, and we're going to see a vibrant overtake for fourth place. Natty bump drafting, played actually down the back straight. Is he going to go for a move on the inside? No, he's not. There's still a chance that either of these drivers, maybe both of those drivers, could finish on the podium, because it looks like the gap between Dutchy and Piero started to come down. I think Piero might have made a small mistake on this lap. He's lost a little bit of time to Toussaint. 2-minute 2.1, 2-minute 2.8, 2-minute 1.9, 2-minute 1.8. You can see the outline. Piero's 2-minute 2. He's lost about a second to the cars around him. But Piero really has been involved in this race so far. He's went deep on the opening lap down at turn 21. Got stuck behind Cameron Kaboom and Wiggly Style when they had their minor collision through the second sector, and was right on the scene of Natty's spin. Black Country Mission in the chat just reminding me of the drama that is to come And he's saying we might need a replay feature. We might need a couple of replay features for the final couple of laps of this race. So stay tuned, everyone. If you haven't already, quickly grab yourself a box of popcorn. I say a box. Get as much of it as you can. About to have a four-way fight for second place, potentially. Bonneville in the lead of this race by maybe 10 seconds to the car behind. Tiger Assassin with a half attempt penalty. Doesn't look like he's making the gains in the cars in front to finish on the podium, and does have damage to the front bumper and front left suspension. So is this his chance of... Is this... Wait, I forgot what I was trying to say because I was reading Cameron's comment. He's saying he wasn't there at the front to see what happened, but saw by the position changes that he knows something happened. There's something happening. There's me with a little bit of grass cutting on the exit of turn 21. But what I was going to say is the damage and the penalty may be a mistake in the strategy. Is this Tiger's now opportunity of finishing on the podium over? He's in 6th place and a corner behind the car in front. Have to wait and see at the end of the race. Just thought I'd take a moment to appreciate the sound of these GT3 cars making their way through the hills of Mount Panorama. And the boom saying could have been in the fight too if he spin at the final corner, and something that I think every driver says at the end of every race. If only I'd done this, if only I'd done that. To which I always say to myself, shoulda, woulda, coulda. I was saying to myself after this race that I probably could have been in a good chance of maybe winning this race, perhaps after events that unfold, after losing 8 seconds with a spin down the dipper, and like Cameron saying, his spin at the final corner. What could have been for Pierre maybe if he wasn't stuck behind Cameron and Ricky Starr when they were side by side to the top of the track, or if he didn't make a mistake at the final penultimate corner, he might have been in front of Toussaint at this phase of the race. You never know. And that's where the shoulda, woulda, coulda phrase comes into it once again. It's like where Tiger Assassin would have been. Oh, we got slow cars through the middle sector. What's happened here? This Black Country Merc who's off in the wall. I don't think there was contact with Abyss, but it looked like 2 arrows going slowly through the downhill dip on the mini-map. But look at this, we've got a three-way fight for second place. Looks like Natty's just lost touch from Play Dutch. He's lost a second on lap 20 to the car in front, so we're going to have a three-way fight for second place. The train led by Toussaint, the gap out in front. About 9 seconds now, so Bonnie's losing a little bit of time despite putting in good lap times. Bored with the Alfa Romeo driver, just look at the commitment through the final sectors. This is something I'd usually do in qualifying, but with the race replay we don't have the option to watch back qualifying, and look at how much these drivers just send the car into this section. Dutch are actually running a little bit wide, but they're just all drivers trying to get as close to the barriers as they can to try and extract as much lap time out of these cars as possible. But as races at Mount Panorama go, this has certainly been an entertaining one. It follows the theme of an action-packed start to the race. The first kind of 15-20 minutes are full of action, drama and overtakes. Then drivers start saving fuel, conserving tyres, adopting different strategies throughout the course of the race. So the race kind of calms down between the 20-minute and the 40-minute, 45-minute mark. But then for the final 10-15 minutes, we're just slapped in the face with overtakes and drivers gaining on the car in front, mistakes being made. 5 laps to go here in the Australian Grand Prix, here at Bathurst. And Bonneville continues to lead. He's led it every single lap, apart from the ones in the pit stop phase where drivers on the 2 stops were changing how the leaderboard was looking. So apart from the pit window phase, it's been a great race from Bonneville, but he's still got 5 laps to take those soft tyres to the end. And in a car that burns through its tyres, it's struggling. It really is struggling. He only just made it 15 laps on a set of the mediums, and he's got to try and take the softs 12 laps, laps 16 to 27. Although 27 minus 16 is 11, you've got to take into account the final lap also has to be complete, so there is still 5 laps to go in this race, 4 when he crosses the line. Look at the tyre difference already. There was only 1 lap difference between Bonnie and Toussaint pitting. Look at the difference between the tyre degradation on the rear right. Going through turn 20, the chase, the final chicane at the circuit. And I think Toussaint, Piero, Duchy, Nati, and even Tyler Assassin are all gaining on the race leader. How far is Tyler off the race leader? 35. Well, he's about 20, maybe 19 seconds off the leader. With 4 laps to go in this race, Bonneville starts at 24 of 27 in the lead. Toussaint is still staying ahead of Piero, who might be a little bit sick of this image right here at the back of that Mercedes AMG GT3 car. He's had a good look at it for a number of laps in this race, and is actually going purple to the first sector. Is this Piero going on a bit of a charge here late on in the race? It's a track that's difficult to overtake, especially if you're quicker through this tight, technical, tricky 2nd and 3rd sector. Obviously this track having 4 sectors, 2 of which are straight, the other 2 are tight, technical and tricky corners. I did just say that 30 seconds ago, kind of. But not long to go for Piero or for Duchy to make these overtakes. 3 cars fighting for 2 spaces on the podium, but which 2 will it be? Bonneville the favourite to win this race with the advantage he has, although tyre wear is looking challenging. He's nearly out of puncture territory and he's still got 3 laps to go. Will he make it to the end of the race in the lead of the race? Only time will tell. We're about to find out. About 5 minutes left of racing, 3 laps to go, 3 cars fighting for 2nd place, 3 cars. Stop unplugging my mic. Here goes Duchy looking for a move on Piero. Here on lap 24, they're side by side. Piero's off, he's in the grass, he can't slow it down, and he's killed Play Duchy. A T-bone to the left door of the Porsche 911. Both cars go off into the gravel and the grass. Here comes Natty G through Piero. Can he find a way past the slow-moving cars? The track's just not wide enough for him to find a way through. But he goes round the outside of Piero. Misjudged the turn and went onto the grass. Was fully committed to the brake on the grass, but couldn't slow it down. Couldn't pull out of the collision that was. Let's get an onboard actually, just to see what happened to Piero in that collision. Riding on board, he's given Toussaint the bump draft. You can see he's got Play Duchy behind him, going alongside the McLaren, and then just couldn't get the car turned for the corner. Fully committed to the brake. and then into the side of Playducci, who wouldn't have known the McLaren was coming his way. Meanwhile, you can see the McLaren behind, with the overspeed of the two cars in front, just can't find a way through. Find the position of Piero. It's the second cut time has made contact with Playducci in this race. At the start it was him and Tiger Assassin. Now he's the victim to a French attack. At the end of this race, I said a few laps ago that Piero was pushing, and just a slight dip in concentration. I've seen him drop from 3rd to 5th. Now Ducci under pressure from Natty. He's going to go for a move on the inside, down and towards turn 2. Hasn't decided to have gone for it on this occasion. There are only 3 laps to go. And that the lead out in front is coming down. Toussaint now the only driver hunting down Bonnieville, has the best chance of winning this race out of the cars behind. Ducci, Natty and Piero all dropping off after the collision at the final chicane. Going through the dip, look how cautiously, look how careful Bonnieville's taking it. 66 miles per hour. Let's go on board with one of the McLarens and see how quickly they're going down the dipper. It was 66 for Bonnieville with high tyre wear to the rear right. 71, 72 for the McLaren of X30G, and Piero doing similar speeds behind. It's nearly 5, 6, 7 miles per hour difference between the race leader and the cars behind him. There you have it. There's a puncture to the rear right of Bonnieville's Alfa Romeo with 2 laps to go. Look at him slipping and sliding all over the place. If you remember last season, when Finn got a puncture on the last lap in Spa, that was the last lap. This is with 2 laps to go, and it's at Mount Panorama. Bonnie has become he's gone from the hunter to the hunted. Toussaint closing him down, and he starts the penultimate lap of the race. Meanwhile, Piero back ahead of Natty up into 4th place. The 2 McLarens battling for 4th position. Natty going to go down the inside in towards turn 1. Thinks better of it. Might try and prepare for a better exit and go for it down the mountain straight in the run down towards turn 2. The white and black McLaren flashing its lights, trying to distract the Frenchman in front, who's got a McLaren gaining and gaining in his mirrors. Now alongside him, side by side, going in towards turn 2. Piero's going to try and swoop it round the outside. Can he make this stick? They're still going to go wheel to wheel, side by side, as Natty and Piero wheel to wheel. And the McLaren, can the Brit go round the outside? He's going to hold it, swoop his way round the outside of Piero. Not enough room to go for it as Piero closed the door on the outside, but great clean racing from these two in their hunt for points in the championship standings. It's unlikely you're going to see any moves here from 2 fast drivers on the same car on the same tyre. As they make their way down the dipper, it's all about keeping it quick, clean and consistent. No mistakes from here on in. But look at the gap. Toussaint can now see Bonnieville in its sight. The Brit nursing his car to the finish line with a puncture to the rear right. I mean, it's often written in the scripts that cars get punctures on the last lap. Look at Hamilton in Silverstone. Look at Lightning McQueen in cars. Look at Finn from Spa last season. But never has a driver had to do 3 laps with a puncture to the rear right. This will be a first. Can Bonnieville win this race? He started on pole. He's dominated the field in this race. But will he be the first to cross the line when the checkered flag is dropped? In the background, Piero and Nancy battling for 4th place, continuing to ignite. Tiger Assassin, look where he's come from in the final couple of laps while all the drama's unfolded. Cameron Gavra might have a decent chance at some good points if more actions to kick off in this race, with the Star Abyss making their way through the top half of the track as Black Country Mush brings up the rear of the field, but only 2 seconds now separating the top 2 in this race. Piero parks his car or moves his car over to the right hand side of the straight to try and defend from the closing grip behind. Will Natty go for a move? A dive bomb into turn 2. Thought about it, but not on this occasion. to try and flip between Piero and Toussaint as quick as I can to see if there are any moves. Look at this, Toussaint's nearly pushing Bon Evil off the hill. Is he going to go for a move down the inside? Not on this occasion. Not enough room to go for it. Meanwhile, it looks like Pierre is staying ahead of Natty for now, but only a couple more corners for Bon Evil to go. Halfway through the final lap of the race, 27 laps. There's about 2 miles left to go. They're side by side going into the dipper. Can Bon Evil keep the lead of the race? Toussaint now going round the outside of ART. Bon Evil 99, a beautiful move from the reigning world champion. Round the outside of the dipper, takes the lead of the race. But there's still a long straight to go, and look who's approaching on the scene as he always does, Mr. Playduchy. 3 cars fighting for the lead of the race with 3 corners to go. A dramatic end to a dramatic race in a dramatic season. Will Toussaint hold on to the lead of the race? Can Bonnie defend second place from Playduchy? It's going to be a tough job for him to make this stick. Toussaint going defensive. They're 3 wide into the final corner. Toussaint in the middle. Bonnie on the inside, who spun on the inside of the curb. The race leader round. And it's Toussaint now with 1 corner to go. Where can Playduchy get a move done? He's going to send one down the inside. Contact at the final corner. Toussaint's off and he's in the wall as Playduchy takes is the first driver to take the checker flag and wins the Australian Grand Prix. Piero in third, Toussaint in second. As a drag race of a life, Tiger just gets Bon Evil in 4th place, Bon Evil in 5th, Natty in 6th. I just need to pause it and take a breath. What a dramatic end to this race. Absolutely incredible. Let's get more replay footage of that as Black Country Mush ordered. On board with the rear wing of Toussaint, you can see the cars gaining on him with the straight line speed advantage the Alfa Romeo has. Unfortunately for Bon Evil, I think it was just too tight on the inside, a little bit of contact, plus the rear tyres just not being able to hold in the traction zones. But then the talking point of the race will be this. Playduchy's move on the inside of Toussaint at the final corner, which saw the Brits off in the gravel and in the wall at the final corner just before the line, which means Dutchy wins here at Mount Panorama and Toussaint settles for second. Piero on the podium. That's not where the action stops, because look at this. Natty and Piero side by side down the back straights whilst the action's kicking off in front of them. These two are having a nice little will-to-will action with only 2 corners to go. We know who finishes ahead of who, but how does it happen? Natty going off at the penultimate corner, corner 22. And he's in 4th place with only 1 corner to go. Breaks at the 100-metre board, but the car doesn't slow down. He goes straight on at the final corner, which sees Bon Evil go through on the inside. Tiger now side by side with the Alfa Romeo, and it's a drag race to the line. But it's the green and yellow Porsche that just gets to the line before the red and white Alfa Romeo. How close was that? Let's have a look. I don't even know where the line is. We can't see the line. This is not a great camera work. Oh, I've missed it. That was awful. Here we go. How close was this? Well, it looked closer, but that is still close after 27 laps to be separated by 500ths. Not the first time Tiger Assassin's finished 500ths ahead of a rival this season. But what a dramatic end to this race. Absolutely incredible. We've still got half the grid to go down. Tiger in 4th, Bon Evil in 5th, Natty in 6th. Cameron Gaboon, it wasn't too far off the leaders, despite the spin at the final corner. He finishes in 7th place. We've got Wiggly Star making his way through the final corner now, in 8th place. The Toyota Supra crosses the line, takes 8th place just behind his teammate. Abyss on his debut might finish in 9th place, might finish in 10th if he can keep it clean through the final corner, because Black Country Mush is not too far behind him. All looks clean from Abyss to hold on to 9th place after starting in 11th. Progress made on his debut. I'm sure he'll be proud of that. Black Country Mush having a massive slide on the exit. Mush has gone through. Abyss, has he run out of fuel? He has. Mush in 9th, and Abyss in 10th. Incredible. So action, literally action from top to bottom. Abyss running out of fuel on the exit of the final corner with Black Country Mush in 9th place. Wow. Unbelievable stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed that as much as I did. Make sure to drop a like and subscribe as we go and run through the grid for the final time. Abyss in 10th place with Black Country Mush in 9th. Wiggly Style finishing in 8th place. Cameron Kaboom in 7th. Natty in 6th. Bon Evil in 5th. Tiger in 4th. Piero on the podium in 3rd place. Toussaint in 2nd. And the race leader, Play Dutchy. After 27 amazing laps at Mount Panorama. But I'm sure the question that's going to be asked, will he keep it? As I'm sure the stewards will be looking into quite a number of incidents that occurred during this race, but it was bound to happen. It's Mount Panorama. We'll just have to wait and see what happens. Trying to get a decent picture of Play Dutchy's car. As there is your race winner after starting in 6th place at a track that's pretty difficult to overtake. I don't think anyone finished in a position. Hang on, how do I word this? I don't think any of the top 6 finished in the same position that they started the final lap on. It was initially set to be. It was starting lap 27. It was Bon Evil, Toussaint, Dutchy, Piero, Natty, Tiger. Lap 28, or the final lap, across the line, it was Dutchy, Toussaint, Piero, Tiger, Bonnie, Natty. None of them maintaining their position starting from the final lap of the race. I don't think that's ever happened before. So a great end to the race. Once again, thank you to all the drivers who turned up for this race. It's an absolute pleasure. Obviously, without you guys, I would just have a league, a calendar, and yeah, I would not have any of this. We're approaching the end of the season. Only 5 races to go, and they all take place in America and Japan. Join us next week to see if Play Dutchy can stop. Can anyone stop Play Dutchy's winning streak? He's only finished 1 race this season where he hasn't won. Is it time for his dominance to be stopped? Stay tuned. This time next week, where Grand Valley Highway makes its GT7 debut. Until then, I've been XNAG. I hope you guys have enjoyed the stream. Time to do some apologies. Apologies, Bon Evil, for calling you useless. I need to turn on the traction control with my speaking, it seems. Obviously, joke, blah, blah, blah. Apologies if I missed any action, overtakes, moments, whatever. I do my best. And obviously, of course, apologies if the commentary is not up to standards. Hopefully the final few laps made up for some quiet parts in the middle. But until then, I'll see you guys next week where we will be back on it. Grand Valley should produce some amazing racing for these amazing drivers. I'm going to stop waffling. I'll see you next week. Goodbye. Disclaimer, I'm winning next week's race.